Good afternoon, folks. This is Andy Reese with Department on Disability Services. Happy people could join us today. Today, we will have some guests from DC Health joining us to provide some updates regarding COVID, as well as answer questions that people may have about monkeypox. In addition, we will get back to what we missed last time, which is a presentation regarding supported employment services here at Department on Disability Services. As always, first, if Charlisa can share on her screen, we'll share the COVID data over the last month. As people may be aware, if you're following the CDC tracker as well, the numbers have been up in the district, and this is also true for the people that we support. In the month of August, there have been 23 people who have been diagnosed with COVID. Of those 23, 20 of them were fully vaccinated and boosted. 3 were one of them not vaccinated at all, and 2 of them were vaccinated but did not have boosters. By placement type, we have 1 person in a correctional facility, 17 people in host homes, 128 people in intermediate care facilities, 1 person in a mental health facility, 144 in natural homes, 2 in a nursing home, 6 in out-of-state placements, 59 in residential habilitation, and 329 in supported living. In the month of August, really the placement type where we saw the most people contracting COVID was in supported living placements. There were 14. Fortunately, we still did not have anyone who required hospitalization in the month of August. There have been no people requiring hospitalization for treatment of COVID since May. During which there were 2 people. People may have noticed, add one person who has had COVID died. However, COVID confirmed deaths, the last one that we had was in September of 2021. We've had a total of 38 confirmed COVID deaths, and we have 4 people with the cause of death still pending. In terms of vaccination rates, people supported by DDA were at 88%. In host homes, that's 99%. In ICFs, 99.6%. In natural homes, it's at 79%. Residential habilitation is 100%. Supported living is at 93%. For vaccination boosters for the people we support, for at least 1 booster, we are at 77%. Provider staff vaccinated, we're at 96%. And boosters for provider staff who are eligible, we're at 69%. DDS staff, 98% have vaccinations and 94% have received a booster. Just 2 quick updates for people regarding some news here at DDS. People are aware that the eligibility for services through our waivers and the eligibility for services at DDA will be expanding. We submitted the waiver amendment and waiver renewal for the IFS and IDD waivers to Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in July. We've gotten their questions, responded to their questions, so we hope that that is on track. Our current waiver, just so people are aware, our current waiver expires in November 19th, I believe is a specific date. We submitted the waiver renewal and the waiver amendment with a request to CMS that they both be approved to take effect October 1. So as they get our responses to the questions, we expect to be hearing back from them, and then we'll have a better idea of exactly what will be the effective date of these two new waivers, which will also be the effective date of the expanded services to include people with developmental disabilities. Providers may be aware that we, in our recent Appendix K, we enhanced some of our rates to allow for an increase for the nursing, the rates paid for nurses. Those rate increases in our most recent Appendix K were through the end of this fiscal year, just because in terms of budget planning, that was as far as we could go. However, with the extension of the public health emergency into October, it means that we will have enhanced federal match into next fiscal year. And so I think in this past week, very recently, DHCF did submit a waiver amendment to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to request that enhanced rate that includes the increase for the nurses' wages continue like all the other flexibilities in our Appendix K until 6 months after the end of the public health emergency. At this time, the public health emergency has been extended until a date in, I believe, the middle of October. It's a date in October. So first up, Kevin Wright from the DD Council has asked to do a brief presentation to talk about the upcoming Employment First anniversary celebration that's going to be happening.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin? Andy. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I just go to take a brief update of the upcoming Employment First Summit. So can it be possible that I kind of just share my screen? I don't know if I have.
You should have a green
button. There we go. There we go. So basically, I just sent this you all. So this is the official flyer. So this is the official flyer for DC Employment First 2022 Summit. So basically, so this are pretty much all the 2 dates for it. So the official dates are October the 20th and October the 21st. On October the 20th, it could be 9 to 5 p.m. And on the 21st, it could be 9 to 3 p.m. And basically, the good thing about it is me and my boss, Allison White, and my awesome team of the Employment First Planning Committee. So this could be like a hybrid event. So basically, so anyone could pretty much decide if they want to attend in person or virtual. So that's a great thing. Also, this is the registration link. So the registration link is open to register. So basically, I know that I did share this flyer to Jocelyn Harris, and she is gonna put this out on the calendar invite for September. And basically for openings, we are targeting 300 people. So our target limit is 300 people to sign up. And basically, since it's gonna be a hybrid event, we're looking for either like 150 to 200 people to be in person, to attend in person for the summit, and probably the 100, then the other 100 probably be for virtual in a way. But basically, the link is ready to go. So once I pass out this flyer to you guys, so you guys will be able just to go on to this link and actually register for the summit in a way. And basically, just for time purposes, so if you all have any questions, so there is my contact information in this flyer. in my government work phone. So basically, if you guys have any questions regarding the summit, accessibility and etc., please send me an email. And basically, it's gonna be at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. So pretty much so this is all I pretty much have. And based, I also just said that we also are looking for call of presentations and for exhibitors. So basically, you all could also indicate if you all want to be presenting at the conference. Well, I know there are some topics we're looking for is based on benefits counseling, job opportunities, customized employment, benefits that could be useful for family members, self-advocators, professionals, etc.
Great, thank you very much, Kevin. We're all looking forward to that. Next up, we have invited some guests, Thembi, as well as Ms. Rouse, sorry, Julia Rouse from DC Health, who are here to provide updates regarding, well, updates and answer questions. So updates regarding COVID, and Ms. Rouse can answer questions people have regarding monkeypox.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julia Rouse, and I'm an epidemiologist at the DC Health Department, as mentioned. So I'll go ahead and kick it off first, and I have a little presentation on monkeypox. So some of this might be familiar to some of you, but it'll still serve as a great basis of understanding. All right, so let me go ahead and share. All right. Can everyone see? Oh, where did it go? Can everyone see the slides?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Now it's coming.
Oh,
There we
good.
go.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. We usually use Teams, so this is a little different. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to chime in.
Julia?
Yep.
Just so you know, we can see your presenter mode. If you go up to the top where it says display settings, it should let you swap it. So
Okay.
right in the middle, display settings.
I see chat, new share.
At the top of your presentation, where it says show taskbar and display settings next to it.
Oh, that is hidden by this. Is it good now? Fingers crossed.
There we go.
Okay, so sorry about that, everyone. Thank you for that. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump in now. Let me see if it will let me. Okay, great. So first things first, the basics of monkeypox. So what is it? So monkeypox is a rare disease that's caused by the monkeypox virus. The monkeypox virus is part of the same family of viruses that cause smallpox. So the symptoms are similar, but the symptoms are more mild, and monkeypox is rarely fatal in comparison to smallpox. I do want to point out that the severity of the monkeypox infection can vary depending on the individual. So depending on their own health status and the route of exposure that they had to monkeypox. So next, what does it look like? So what are the symptoms of monkeypox? Well, there are kind of two main groups. So the first group we're going to talk about is prodromal symptoms. So these are considered the early symptoms of monkeypox. And these may include fever, headache, sore throat, cough, and swollen lymph nodes. So that could be swollen lymph nodes of any of that you have. So in the armpits, neck, or groin regions. So not every individual who has monkeypox experiences these early symptoms, but then that'll move on to the rash or bumps or lesions, which is what most people think about when they think about monkeypox. So this rash, as I said, appears as bumps or lesions, and there are images here on the screen. So these bumps appear as well circumscribed, meaning that they have clear clear borders. They are deep-seated, so they feel very deep in the skin, and they often present as umbilicated, which is easiest to see in the top right photo. So you can see where there is that small dot in the middle of the lesion. So that's what that means. These lesions can definitely be very painful, and it can increase depending on where the lesions are. So in more sensitive locations, it can definitely be more painful as well. I do just want to quickly point out that the lesions go through a progression of stages. You can see those listed there. And so it can appear a little different as time passes. Just so you know, the last stage is actually a scab phase. So the bump scabs over, and then eventually the scab will fall off, and then new skin will be formed underneath. So that was everything about the symptoms. That is commonly what we're seeing right now. It can vary a lot from person to person, but that is definitely what we're seeing. Next, I'd just like to talk about transmission. So how does it spread? This is also really important for everyone to understand. So there's a few different ways it spreads. So one is through direct contact with the rash. So direct contact with those bumps or sores. This could be direct contact that's very casual or very intimate and everything in between. It can also spread through contact with items, so such as clothing or fabrics or linens. So these are all items that someone who has that rash has been in contact with. You can also be exposed through contact with infected animals, but that is not what we're going to be seeing here in DC in most cases. The last way of how monkeypox is spread is through droplets. So this is through exposure to virus-containing respiratory droplets during prolonged face-to-face contact. So you can also be exposed that way. All right, now I just want to touch on two important terms related to monkeypox that can help better understand it as well. So the first is the incubation period. So this is the time between someone is exposed, but before they have any symptoms. So this period for monkeypox is 21 days or 3 weeks. During this period, individuals aren't having any symptoms and they are not contagious. This is what developed us to provide our recommendation for any close contacts. So anyone who is identified as a close contact of someone who tested positive for monkeypox. So for these close contacts, we do ask them to monitor for symptoms for the entire incubation period, which is that 21-day period. Moving on to infectious period. So as it suggests, this is when you can spread the infectious to others, so you are contagious. And this period is from the onset of symptoms until after all of those scabs, as we discussed, had fallen off and the new skin is formed underneath. This can differ depending on the individual, also can differ depending on how many lesions someone has, but it is also normally within a 3-week or 4-week period. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the vaccine, which is great news that we have a vaccine available. So this is Jynneos. This vaccine contains a live virus that does not replicate in human cells, and it gets administered to individuals via an injection. So you can have 1 or 2 of those. The second would be 28 days later. Right now, the vaccine is offered 2 different ways or 2 different routes. So one, something we call post-exposure prophylactics, which for short is PEP. So this is a way to administer the vaccine that would decrease the severity of symptoms if you would develop it later on. So this is after you are exposed, but before you have symptoms. So this is for all of those DC Health identified close contacts. This whole process is coordinated by DC Health. So what you can expect is if you are identified as a close contact, a member of DC Health would give you a call. We'd have a conversation, share information, ask you questions. Of course, you can ask questions as well. And part of that will include deciding if you are eligible and if you would like to receive the PEP vaccination and then coordinating that. So we have also expanded our eligibility to PEP++. So this has been expanded to be able to have individuals who are at high risk populations to also be able to receive the vaccine, even if they aren't a close contact at that time. So for PEP++, it's a little bit of a different process. So what you would do is you would go ahead and register online at this link, and I can share all of this afterwards. So you would go to this link, you would pre-register. And once you do that, you would be directly reached out to about when and where to get your vaccination. I will put a little note in there that this is subject to vaccine availability, so this can change, and also as criteria changes as this progresses. If you happen to go through this process and for whatever reason you cannot make your scheduled appointment or need to change it, you can email this email address on the screen and they would be able to change that and answer any questions as well. Next, just to take it a step further, we have expanded the eligibility even more for individuals who may not be able to go through this pre-registration process. So in that case, we have walk-up clinics that are offered Friday afternoons from noon to 8 p.m. So right now at these 3 sites listed on the screen, and no registration is necessary. So you just need to show up at the allotted time, and you can also receive the vaccination. All right, so now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So for all of our healthcare providers out there, just want to talk a little bit about reporting suspect monkeypox cases to DC Health. So if you are a healthcare provider and you have a patient that you think may have monkeypox, we do ask you to go ahead and submit a case report form to us, and that can be found at this link here. This link is also for all notifiable diseases and conditions. So it's that same link. And you do have to register and have a login. So if you don't already have an account, there is a spot you can register to create your account. This is really important for DC Health because it makes us aware of these suspect monkeypox cases before they test positive, so we can get a jump start on our case investigation process. And lastly, I just want to quickly talk about TPOXX treatment. So there is treatment available for monkeypox. There is an added layers of eligibility and forms and all of that. But I'll just quickly share that if you as a provider have a patient that is interested in this TPOXX treatment, you would fill out this request form here at the link, and then a member of DC Health will reach out to that provider to coordinate moving forward. Again, this is another email address for any monkeypox, TPOXX questions. We go to monkeypox.tx@dc.gov. And with that, that is everything I had here. So I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. People did put a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll just read them to you. First off, which I think you've answered, but I'll go ahead and read it just in case. Will a vaccine be mandatory?
So right now it is not mandatory. Who knows to say as everything progresses.
During the infectious period, does the disease spread due to contact with the rash, or does it spread with any contact with the skin of an infectious person?
So all of those transmission routes that we discussed could be spread, but the most common that we're seeing is that direct skin-to-skin contact with the rash.
Oh, and this question really, I think, if Shasta is here, is for DDS in part. What is the link for the case report form? That would be you. And TPOXX request forms. And what is DDS's process, if any is defined yet, for reporting such cases? So the link was in your presentation, right?
Yeah, and you guys can share that. Yeah.
Okay, so we will be sharing the PowerPoint on our website as we share PowerPoints from all of the presentations. And I know that Shasta is here, so if you're able to unmute and just talk about any reporting requirement as an incident or an issue for DDS.
As it relates specifically to monkeypox? Hello.
Correct.
Yes. So at this point in time, if you have any positive cases for monkeypox, we're asking for you to enter the incident report as other. And then we don't have a classification right now for monkeypox the same way we do for COVID. So if you just enter it as other, the health and wellness nurse will then follow up.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And how is prolonged face-to-face contact defined in terms of time for the respiratory droplet transmission of monkeypox? Is there exposure risk assessment tool providers can use?
Yeah, so there are not necessarily a tool, but more along the lines of guidelines that are listed on the CDC website, which I can share a link as well. Great resources there. But there are 3 different risk groups, so high, intermediate, and low. So different criteria for each of those. Prolonged contact being described as more than 3 hours.
I'm just reading so that people know that we have seen your question. Is the presentation available online? Yes. How can we guarantee that high-risk DDS service recipients can have confidential access to the vaccine, given that right now eligibility is based on sexual behavior that people may not want to disclose to their service providers? I mean,
It's kind of to you, kind of to me.
right. It's the challenge from the DDS side, and maybe I didn't see if Musu is here as well, or any of our providers can speak to when they're providing services to people. And this is something that we actually talked about. Michael, who's our nurse educator, had a roundtable for the nurses to talk about monkeypox, and part of what they talked about was sort of identifying someone who could have those conversations with people, recognizing that it could be a different person in different circumstances who's in the best position to provide education to the person about their risk and the availability of a vaccine. And the confidentiality of people's information is the same for all their health information. So, and I don't know how much that's a DC health question, really, because it's clearly confidential information from your.
Yeah, I think I only wanted to add that the eligibility can change. We recently updated it, so it is an ongoing process as we learn more. So keep an eye on that website to have the most up-to-date information.
And our folks are also watching the website, so we will push that information out as there is updated information.
Great.
And Charlisa just included a note as well indicating the PowerPoints from today and the recording will be available by Wednesday next week. Okay, thank you. Next up from DC Health, Thembi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for having us join today. I just wanted to give some brief updates on where our next steps as DC Health Epi regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. So as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve, the impact on the community has vastly changed. And so our response has also had to follow that, right? What we're seeing is that the risk of severe disease, hospitalizations, and death from COVID-19 has declined due to, one, the increasing vaccination levels and a high level of our population being immune from both the infections and vaccinations. And some of this data or some of this information was very apparent in the initial slides Director Reese shared with us, showing that we haven't had high levels of hospitalizations or deaths or other severe illnesses in recent months, right? What to keep in mind is that we are still experiencing high community transmission, but the case counts and how high our transmission rates is don't always reflect the impact COVID-19 has on our healthcare system or the risk of significant disease in our DDS community. So this has led us to a point in the pandemic where we try to transition or establish the new norm. We know COVID will be with us for the foreseeable future, and we want to establish, I guess, a new norm or how we a way forward, a new way forward. And this has prompted a review of all our guidances. One major change that affects DDS is that we will, in the next couple of weeks, be transitioning from issuing broad COVID-19 guidance for our DDS stakeholders, which we recognize wasn't always applicable to all persons supported and had its flaws, to providing resources that individuals or providers can use to assess their own risk and protect themselves against COVID-19. We feel it's very important to empower persons supported to make decisions on COVID-19 based on the context and their unique needs. We know that not everyone, not all persons supported have the same risk levels, right? So what we're doing is we're working with DDS colleagues as well as other stakeholders to ensure that any new guidance is issued going forward prioritize the well-being of persons supported without compromising safety. And I would like to also emphasize that although we are making significant changes to guidance for persons supported, our guidance for healthcare workers at this moment will not change. And that's because we want to ensure that healthcare workers remain safe in the healthcare space and that they also protect our stakeholders. Another item that we're working on is that we want to change, we're changing, again, you may have heard about the bivalent vaccine being released next month. So we are working with immunizations to prepare our partners for the upcoming release and rollout of the bivalent vaccine. Essentially, the bivalent vaccine will be more effective against Omicron and other subvariants that we've experienced, right? Vaccines continue to be our most important tool in preventing severe illness, hospitalizations, and death. And I was glad to see that this was also consistent across all settings, especially with the data shared by Director Reese earlier in the presentation. Thank you. That's all I have for now. We will issue a letter specifying the exact guidances that we will be withdrawn and providing a list of resources that, again, individuals and facilities can use that will apply to their unique context or needs. Thank you. Do we have any questions for us?
Not seen any so far. I do see a follow-up in the chat related to monkeypox, which is, I understand health information is confidential, but I think that people will be very concerned if they disclose to their service provider that they're at risk or that they've had multiple partners in the last 2 weeks, that they could fear their provider would use this information against them or try to restrict them in some way. I'm hoping that one thing I will say is, I think that having these kinds of discussions with people related to monkeypox is certainly sensitive. those are important and sensitive conversations to have, but it's not the first time that providers have had to deal with these kinds of issues. And, you know, respecting people's rights as well as having discussions with people about how to stay safe and healthy is part of what we expect from our providers. So I would be curious if either, I know that Musu and Rode are both here, if one of them could unmute to speak to this a little bit, or even, quite frankly, any of our providers who could speak to how you do this in a provider setting. Because it is the challenge of helping someone learn what they need to know to stay safe, as well as respecting a person's rights to make choices in their life. So Musu, Rode, or as I said, any of our providers who would like to. I do see that we had some good questions earlier from provider nurses who are here. So
yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Rode Bernadelle, I'm program manager with DDS. And I think when it comes to having conversations about anything that's sensitive is taken into consideration the person's privacy, the setting that they want to have the conversation in, if it's in a team meeting or if it's one-on-one with somebody that they trust, and just making sure that who is ever having the conversation with them is educated on the topic, whether it's talking about monkeypox or it's talking about COVID and how to stay safe. And you know, provider staffs, they do have those conversations with people they support and making sure that they keep their own biases or personal opinions out of the conversation and just respecting the person's choice. But I think it's about helping the person make an informed choice. So making sure that we have the right information and providing it timely.
thank you. So this is for DC Health. Could you explain the need for DSPs to wear eye protection in residential settings if there's been a decrease in severe illness, hospitalizations, and deaths from COVID?
Good afternoon. That is a very good question. So again, just because the risk has dropped, it doesn't mean it's zero, especially for our vulnerable populations. We are still seeing deaths and hospitalizations related to COVID-19. So the number has not zeroed out. There is still some risk of that. Another thing to keep in mind is that, again, severe illness is defined differently in medical terms than it is in our community terms. So for severe illness, we're speaking about prolonged hospitalization, having to use a ventilator. It doesn't encompass some of what our community would see as severe. That means, you know, being short of breath, being facing some level of illness or ill feeling during the period. So our definition of severe illness is very different. And for our stakeholders or for the rest of the community, they will have a varied experience from that. So it's important to remember that just because the risk of illness and hospitalizations and death have declined, it's still there. It's still a dangerous or element. So what we want to do is still ensure that we put measures to protect our community members from that. And one way is ensuring our healthcare workers are using all precautions, just because they interact with at-risk individuals in various settings who have various risk levels. And for the question regarding coronavirus.hai at dc.gov, yes, this email is still active and is still a recommended point of contact for questions regarding exposures. And if in the event of an outbreak, or if you just need infection prevention and control advice, we are still able to provide all of that. So please do feel free to reach out with any additional questions, or if you do need technical assistance.
I see a question in terms of COVID PPE. What is the status, guidance, process of participants who cannot tolerate a mask in day programs?
Thank you for that. At present, we are still recommending that individuals use masks where possible. They have been different mask types, some that feel a lot more comfortable than others. When that is not possible, and we know that this is a reality, some of our person-supported may not, or in our day programs may not be able to use a mask at all. In those instances, we recommend increased screening and monitoring, as well as social distancing and frequent cleaning and disinfection, just to ensure that we minimize the risk of spread from one person to another, or acquiring COVID in that setting.
Great, thank you. And I think that's all the questions we've had for DC Health. So next up, Ifeoma with RSA's Supported Employment, the supervisor for our Supported Employment unit, is going to share her screen, right? Yes. And we'll do a presentation regarding supported employment services here at DDS. Oh, and as she gets ready to share her screen, I'm going to get to this one last question that someone posted. There are many residential settings where people supported are not vulnerable. An IDD diagnosis doesn't equate with medical fragility. Sorry, they knocked out my chat box for a second. Hospital employees are not wearing eye protection unless they're dealing with bodily fluids. Yet our employees are wearing them in homes and apartments. I believe that this needs further review and analysis. And someone agreed and said they'd like you to look at this. And I know this is the PPE guidance that is out there, and I believe will be remaining, but MB. I don't know if you have a response to that, or if you can just take that information and consider it as you consider your guidance moving forward. Can you do present?
Mute myself.
No, don't unmute yourself.
Oh, don't unmute it.
So hi everyone, welcome to the forum. My name is Ifeoma Moka, Supervisory Vocational Rehabilitation Specialist with DC RSA, in charge of the specialized unit that manage supported employment and evidence-based supported employment cases. So today we're going to be discussing what supported employment is and what evidence-based supported employment stands for, and RSA's collaborative efforts with DDA, that's the Developmental Disabilities Administration, which is also part of our DDS, and Department of Behavioral Health, DDA, to coordinate services and case management in order to provide high quality services and support to help people with disabilities.
Excuse me, Ifeoma.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It might, the sound may come out better if we mute the owl and unmute it from your computer, because it's a little low for people to hear.
No.
Or if we scoot the
Okay,
the
Is it
owl.
better?
Yeah.
mute yourself. Just speak up, please.
Okay.
Don't. Okay. We're good.
Okay, I had to mute myself and then I'm gonna try to speak up. So
You're not muted.
I think.
Just speak up.
So please, are people able to hear me?
I can hear you better.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna start all over. So again, my name is Ifama Moka, and the supervisory vocational rehabilitation specialist from DC RSA, responsible or in charge of the units that manage supported employment and evidence-based supported employment. So today we're going to discuss what is supported employment or what supported employment is and evidence-based supported employment. And RSA's collaborative efforts with DDA, that we all know DDS stands for Developmental Disabilities Administration, and Department of Behavioral Health, DDH, how we coordinate services with them in order to provide high quality services and support to help people with disabilities, including intellectual disability, behavioral health conditions, substance use disorder, etc., to achieve and retain employment. Supported employment entails providing services to persons with disabilities. Just like I have mentioned, some of those disabilities, intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, behavioral health conditions, to obtain and retain a part-time or full-time job in a competitive integrated employment setting that pays the person at least minimum wage. If the person supported prefers or obtains an ability to one job, the vocational rehabilitation specialist, in this case, going forward, I'm going to refer to as VRS, ensures that it is in an integrated setting and the person does not earn less than the minimum wage established by the state where the job is located. So the key word here is integrated, a competitive integrated employment, and making sure that the wage being paid is at least at minimum wage for whatever state that the job is located. Then, I don't know, I'll put this picture on blocking this other part.
That's actually good.
Right from there. Well,
Excuse me.
thank you, Directory. So for the evidence-based supported employment, DDS RSA supports the Department of Behavioral Health to deliver an evidence-based supported employment program to adults with serious behavioral health conditions and substance use disorders, geared toward that population achieving and retaining competitive integrated employment that were interrupted or intermittent due to significant behavioral health issues. So now, on the part of the DDA, we talked about general supported employment, right? On the DBH side, we qualified it as evidence-based. The major difference is that the evidence-based supported employment is based on the IPS model. The IPS model is usually rapid. We try to engage in job search within 30 days of the person expressing interest in employment. We go over to the benefits of employment. The benefits of employment for the population that we support are the following, but not limited to what I'm going to mention. Having structure we all know how important it is for somebody to have structure. You wake up in the morning, you're not wondering what to do because you have a schedule, you have a job to go to. Increase in income and financial stability. The person is able to earn more money to afford what they need and feels financially stable. Decrease dependence on welfare and entitlement programs. So with somebody who is employed, we see like people are not going to be relying on food stamp, SSI, well, depending on whether the person is working full-time or part-time. Improvement of self-esteem cannot be overemphasized. When people get jobs, they have this feeling of self-worth, of self-actualization. They feel so good about themselves. Enhancement of quality of life. This still cannot be overemphasized. As a service coordinator, I had somebody, I mean, the role I had before coming back to VR, I had a client in my caseload, and please permit me to use client and person supported interchangeably for the purpose of this presentation. I know on the DDS part, we refer to them as person supported. The name that we refer to clients evolved over the years from consumer to client to individual to person supported. But for the RSF part, we consistently just refer to people receiving services from us as clients. So whenever I say client or person supported, I'm still talking about the same person. So now, as a service coordinator, when I'm talking about enhancement of quality of life, that person that I helped to get a job was able to take a trip with a family to Jamaica on vacation, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible because the family wanted everybody to pay their own share, and he was able to afford it. Then talking about enrichment of family relationships and better social inclusion opportunities, For that same person, the mother had wanted me to put him in DDS supervised housing. But the moment he got that full-time job, she agreed with me that the natural home setting is actually the best place for him, which previously wasn't the case. So the family dynamic improved, and she was able to see value in him because he's now a contributing member of the family. Then reduction in behavioral health and substance use disorder and its symptoms. So when people get jobs, we all know the popular saying that idle mind is a devil's workshop. When people have jobs, they have structure, they have a place to go to, they're busy. They're not thinking of where to get the next high and stuff like that. So you see a reduction in behavioral health issue because of that aforementioned other benefits like improvement of self-esteem, social connections. They look forward to going to work and all that, keeping busy and keeping out of trouble, etc. To the next slide. Talking about services provided by supported employment. There's intake, there's assessment, and eligibility determination. Development of individualized plan for employment. That's IPE for short. Benefits counseling. Benefits counseling is very important. Again, having the privilege of having worked under service coordination, first via service coordination, and then came back to VIA, I had the opportunity to see firsthand that when people are not well informed about benefits counseling or what's there, they get scared. They think that, oh, once you start working, you're going to lose your benefit. You see people that are really interested in working, but are being discouraged by family because of the misconception that once you start work, you're going to lose your benefit. And when you lose your benefit, it takes a while before you get it back. So that's why benefits counseling is really important at every stage of the VR process. It's an ongoing thing. So, people are well informed to make informed decision, understanding that the mere fact that you start working does not mean your benefit automatically gets cut off. It also allows them to determine how much hours and all that they want to work. Then we go to treatment team coordination. The VR counselors participate in treatment meetings, because it is always good to be involved and know everything about the person and be able to identify things that may affect the person's ability to obtain and retain a job, and then have the team tackle the problem or come up with strategies on how to avoid those. Then we have job training, as vocational training. For those that need it, if you don't already have the set skills for your vocation of choice, I would say we sponsor people for job training. Then we have job development and job placement. So for job development, it's the stage where we are looking for jobs. We have in-house employment specialists. We also have our supported employment vendors. So they try to, support the person with sourcing employment, with prospective providers, and then finally the person gets placed in employment. That's job placement. I'm not actually given this in any particular order. So the next thing I have on my slide talked about adaptive technology. That's also a service provided by VR. There's transportation, there's maintenance check. And this maintenance is just, it takes care of some miscellaneous items. For instance, somebody may need to get a job with an organization that doesn't pay for background check. We sponsor that from the maintenance, or maybe they don't pay for drug screening and stuff like that, or driver's license and stuff. Then we also take care of work uniform and clothing. If somebody needs work uniform and clothing. Then there's job coaching. For job coaching, I must say that majority or most of the people need job coaching, but we still have a few people, depending on where they had worked before, the skill set, they may have transferable skills. And from day one, they're good on the job, and they tell you, we don't want job coaching. And, there are other reasons why they may not want job coaching. It's not everybody wants to disclose that they have a disability. Some people, they just don't want to be disclosed because, they don't, because they feel that they're going to be treated differently. And it could also be because they have other people that they know that within the same establishment that never knew they had a disability. So, they want that privacy, and we need to respect that. And then we have full along supports, meaning after job coaching, we enter full along supports. So just checking in with the person, see how things are going, letting the person know you're still here for them. And even if you're not disclosed, like the employer does not know that you have a disability, but you know that we're still here for you. At the slightest inclination that there will be trouble, they will contact us to provide guidance on how they can respond to certain situations. Let's see. Then the next slide, I have types of jobs obtained through supported employment and evidence-based supported employment. The reason why we have this slide here is because of the some preconceived notion by people that mostly jobs that we get through supported employment is just about custodian or stocking. But you can see, I'm not going to go through all the list because you can check it out on the PowerPoint later. I'll just mention a few. We have produce clerk, we have that class, stock clerk, custodian, substitute teacher, assistant editor, retail associate, child care assistant, investigator, mechanic, medical assistant, and I'm just gonna go to the last one I have and try to brag a little about it. Scrum Master. We had somebody that will support through the evidence-based supported employment. That got a job paying $130,000 a year as Scrum Master. So I just put it there so people will understand that it's not just about those other basic ones, that it goes beyond custodian or what have you, stocking, it's an area of different vocations that we are touching. So now we come to the slide that talks about RSA and DDA collaboration. Remember, when I started, I said we have the general supported employment, which is where we deal with the DDA population, and then we have the evidence-based supported employment, the one with Department of Behavioral Health. So let's see how we collaborate with our DDA colleague. So the first item on the bullet point, the RSA Vocational Rehab Specialists, VRS, participates in individualized support plan, that's ISP meeting, and ensures DDS service coordinator provides a copy of the client's ISP to RSA. VRS provides a copy of the client's IPE, the individualized plan for employment to the service coordinator. The VRS provides clients job development and job placement updates. This report they come in monthly, either from our in-house employment specialist or from the external vendor, the supported employment provider. So we try to make it available to the service coordinator so they see the progress that the person is making. The VRS engages in case management meetings, and these meetings come up as needed. It could be a meeting initiated by the service coordinator. It could also be initiated by our vocational rehab specialist. Say, for instance, if a client or person supported is not engaging in the VR process, missing appointments with the supported employment vendor, the VR counselor will collaborate with the RSA and with the DDS service coordinator to call a case meeting to address it. So, and the VR specialist ensures that they participate in the 6 months ISP review meeting. Because under the DDA, the ISP, I have already indicated, is individualized support plan. That plan is reviewed every 6 months to see how the person is doing on the current outcomes that are agreed in that year. So the VRS from RSA participates in that meeting. The VRS attends monthly RSA DDA collaborative meeting to process challenging cases and ensures everyone in the person's circle of support plays a part in the VR process. This section, very important, because sometimes you see that somebody supported under the DDA, maybe involved in their program like IDS, or the habitation, mostly IDS, because a lot of times the people involved in the habitation are not really looking for employment. But the bottom line is they're involved in the program and then also involved with RSA and the residential providers' attitude. Sometimes it's like, when you talk about employment, they feel that, oh, it's the day provider's responsibility. So, but the truth is that in order for the population we support to achieve employment, it takes a village. All hands need to be on deck. Everybody needs to participate. So we would like, or we always like to see that, let's say, example, somebody in DDA supervised housing. If you have an employment outcome, we would like to see in your ISP a corresponding employment outcome. There should be an employment outcome there. And in the IPP, which is the individualized program plan from the residential provider, I would also like to see a goal, an outcome about how they're going to support that person to return employment. You know, not saying, oh, it's something for the day provider to do. No, everybody needs to play a part. Just think about it. If somebody, you know, wakes up in the morning and for some reason have the blues, not able to go to work, not because he doesn't want to go, but because the person is just not in the mood of feeling low. And I used to have one of our directors in those days say to us, if you wake up in the morning and you're gonna come in here feeling grouchy and not be polite to both internal and external customers, I'd rather you take a mental health, they just take the day off. So now let's say the client or person supported wakes up in the morning and not able to go to work. It is the duty of the responsible residential provider to partner with that person, to remind that person, you don't just not go to work. Partner with the person to call, you know. You don't have to make the call with the person, but remind the person, support the person, encourage the person that the proper thing to do is to call your supervisor and say, you're not doing well today, you know, you're not coming in. So that way the person is not going to be a no-call notion. Same thing, we don't know when incidents happen. So let's say it's not even about ill health, but an incident occurs on a day somebody's supposed to be on duty. The residential provider will partner with the person, you know, prompt the person, encourage them that the proper thing to do is to call and let your supervisor know that you're not going to come in. The residential provider also supports the person with maybe making sure alarm is set up. You know, the direct support staff, the person sets up alarm in order to get up early in the morning to get ready. Make sure the person is well groomed. You make sure the person, if they're on any medication, that the medication is taken. Because we know that somebody has to be physically and mentally stable in order to achieve and sustain employment. I can go on and on and on. You're gonna make sure the person is well groomed, regardless of the nature of the job. You know, if it's a job that requires uniform, was the uniform washed and ready to go? You know, or is there a transportation concern? Even if the person uses something like metro access and they're running late, just remind the person, remember, these are people with intellectual disability. So remind the person that you have to call your supervisor and explain that due to transportation concern, I'm going to be late than just you know, coming late and feeling that, or that they should understand. So, and if the person has behavioral health issues and has a PSP, the residential provider should be making sure that the ABC data sheet is completed. When these reports are not there, even when the person has the PSP, the PSP provider is not able to adequately support that person or revise the plan as needed if the residential provider is not capturing this. So I'm just spending time on this particular point, just you know, because of numerous providers feeling that, oh, it's the responsibility of the day provider. So I'm just trying to say, this is where you come in. This is how it takes a village. Everybody needs to play their part, you know, that for that population to achieve and sustain employment. It's also the duty of the residential provider to ensure that if the person needs guidance and counseling, that the therapy is in place. For people that have anger management issues, like as a service coordinator, I had somebody that I thought, I mean, at some point, not me, but people in the circle of support. And why I say not me is because I had previously supported him directly to get a job. And he was able to keep that job for close to 6 months before something happened and he got fired. So this same person, as his service coordinator before I went back to VR, I made sure that he had anger management in place. He had addiction issue, substance use, in place. And because he was now married, or he's married, that couples therapy is also in place. Not just that these are in place, but I check with the vendors, the provider, the community provider, making sure that he's actually keeping the appointments and stuff like that. So this is something that the residential provider needs to be doing. So I think I've said enough about how the residential provider comes in. So we don't have that misconception that it's just the duty of the day provider or the provider that has the authorization for supported employment. No, the residential also plays a part. And then the next one is about VRS, that's the vocational rehabilitation specialist, provides 30-day notice of transition to extended services, the DDS service coordinator, and ensures job coaching remains in place through VR funding until transferred to home and community-based services waiver program. So, so pretty much trying to say that even when the population we support, the person supported gets a job through VR, and the person had used job coaching, and it's established that he will continue to need job coaching until it's gradually, reduced to follow along and all that. So when the person stabilizes, then we transfer to extended services through the waiver. The service coordinator gives a 30-day notice of that transition, and they also have meetings with them if necessary to just make sure that we are on the same page, that the service coordinator knows who their supported employment vendor is. And DDS, as an agency, has done a good job making sure that the vendors or the supported employment vendors on the RSA are the same people on the DDA. So I go to the next slide. So the next slide shows the people that we collaborate with under the DDA. You can see the huge part of it is the service coordinators, DDA service coordinators, or DDA service planning and coordination division. And then on the right side, we have most of our supported employment providers. And these providers are through both RSA and DDA. So the list may not be exhaustive. So any provider, if you don't see your name, just know that I did indicate at the top that these are some of our supported employment providers through RSA and DDA home and community-based service waiver. Yeah, I don't have them in any particular. I try to list the ones I have on this page alphabetically. On top of my head, I know about Innovative Day, about Head Start to Life, Superior Caring Hands, Global Resources and Support, very great. RCM of Washington, St. John's, so MBI, and some of the PSI Family Services. A few of these providers are also under evidence-based because they have the mental health components. The behavioral health service provider, that behavioral health service providers as well. And we're going to get to that next page. So if you are a waiver service provider for supported employment or RSA and you don't find your name on this list, please excuse me because I didn't want the list to be too long. Right, so we go to the next slide. The next slide talks about our collaboration with DBH, Department of Behavioral Health. So the VRS, that's the RSA VR specialist, attends mental health meetings weekly or monthly, depending on the sites that the person is covering, with DBH certified supported employment providers. And those providers are Anchor Mental Health, Community Connections, Hillcrest Family Services, MBI Health Services, PSI Family Services, Psychiatric Center Chartered. And then on the PowerPoint, you're going to see that I had put some in red and highlighted, showing that those ones highlighted in red, they also are substance use disorder provider, the ones in red. So VRS, as the RSA VR counselor, receives monthly updates on job development, job placement, and job stabilization from DBAs, evidence-based supported employment providers. Myself, yours truly, the supervisory VR specialist. I participate in DBAs, evidence-based supported employment managers meeting monthly. Below that statement, you'll see that the person who is at the helm of affairs for our DBH team is, I didn't mention her name, but is Miss Melanie Crutchfield. Her position is supported employment program manager. She oversees these other entities: the Anchor Mental Health supported employment program manager, Community Connections supported employment program manager, Hillcrest Family Services supported employment program manager, MPI Health, PSI Family Services Psychiatric Center Chartered. So we have meetings the last Thursday, no, the third Thursday of every month. We meet and get update on what's happening, brainstorm on how to deal with challenges and what have you. So I'm gonna try to quickly wind up so we can have time for questions. Yes, that is it for me. Thank you for that.
Are there any questions regarding supported employment? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ifioma, for sharing the work of our supported employment unit that I know is coordinating very closely with DBH as well as our DDA service coordinators. If we have no other questions, I do just want to, Thembi had responded to the question that someone raised, as often is the case. People have a question once anyway. So she just responded to say that they continue to review their guidance as new information becomes available, but presently, the general consensus is that during high transmission, healthcare workers should use all appropriate PPE during healthcare interactions to protect them from acquiring or to reduce the risk of spreading. We do understand that not all stakeholders are medically fragile. Please also note that during low transmission levels, this requirement is withdrawn. And people should be tracking the CDC website for that information, because we actually, we went from high to substantial and back up to high again this week. So please, follow that and follow the guidance that continues to be there from DC Health and the CDC. So seeing no other questions, have a good weekend, everyone, and we will talk with you again next month. Thank you very much.
everyone.